France is doing interesting stuff. I don't know which part of the world are they living. Colonial era probably is still in their mind. There's a lot of things happening there, including closure of the mosque and attacks on Muslim women, even Burkini, gone for swimming and they are being detained and fined and things of this nature. So joining me today is Maria De Cartena. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Maria De Cartena is a human rights activist who has been working against these discriminatory laws. Tell us, what is this separatism law?
The Anti-Separatism Law, it's a law that creates a group subject to truly derogatory regime based on suspicion, control, intimidation, and repression. It would be another statement to say that this law that is called to reinforcing the principle of the Republic, while this law actually destroys the Republican principles of freedom, equality, and fraternity, as well as the secularism. Since French state interfered in the religious practice and worship of the Muslims in France. Unreasonable search, threat of evictions, dissolution of association, and mosques closure were a few months ago illegal, and now it's the norm. The anti-separatism law institutionalizes and legalizes Islamophobia in France. This law is stigmatizing Muslims in France because it's a law that aims to restrict the ability of Muslim minority and all Islamic organizations to act. This means that a number of activities will be more difficult to handle for Muslims or even impossible for Muslims to do in France. So if I summarize the impact that this law will have in France, it's a law that bans homeschooling for Muslims. It's a law that scrutinizes the practice of Muslims in France. It's also a law that scrutinizes the activities of the Muslim NGOs and associations. In addition, the khutbahs of the Imam are scrutinized due to the Imam Charter, forbidding them to speak about political matter in their speech or to speak about state Islamophobia. We also have with this law the ban for women wearing the hijab from participating to national and international sport competitions. And we also have the ban of the burkini in swimming pool and public places. So the aim of this law is to dismantle all visible Muslim religious expression or political expressions. This law is to dismantle, again, as I was saying, all political Muslim expression. Normal citizens, we have two different of citizens in France. So as I was saying, normal citizens and under citizens who do not have the same rights and freedoms as the rest of the French population. Clearly, this law is a political, economic, and social apartheid for Muslims living in France. It's not Muslims who are separatists. It's the French government which is creating the separation with the Muslims community. So we must expose the French hypocrisy on its way to treat Muslims in France. And France is not a land of freedom and nor the land of liberty, equality, and fraternity, but the land of systemic Islamophobia.
You're saying the anti-separatism law, in nutshell, is a separatism law, is forcing Muslims to be separated from the society. Isn't that true?
Yeah, what I'm saying is it's not the Muslims who are separatists, because the French government is saying that Muslims are separatists and that's why a part of the community is Islamic than separatist. But the issue is that the French government is making a separation with its Muslim community because the French government does not accept that there is Muslims who are practicing their faith and who are organized by Muslim NGOs or associations or political parties. They do not accept that.
Tell us this, when did France turn in this direction, or France has always been like that?
France benefits from non-Muslim population abroad from the image of a country of human rights, even from Muslim population abroad, from a country of human rights in which the notion of freedom and equity have been associated. Obviously, we as French Muslims are well positioned to consider that this statement is wrong. During the debate on the separatism bill and since the adoption of this legislation, the closure of mosques, as I was saying earlier, the dissolution of Islamic NGOs and organizations, the scrutiny of Islamic schools, and the dehumanization of Muslims, especially all visible Muslims, has become a national sport. Muslims in France are targeted and harassed 24/7 on TV news and newspaper by almost all the French political class and journalists. If you aggregate the results in the polls of the Islamophobic candidates, they are reaching 85% of voting intention. Islamophobia reaches all political parties, from the far right to the far left. So there is currently an assault on Muslim human rights in France. I would like to bring to the audience that the current government come from the Liberal Party. It's a centrist party. It's not a far-right party. And the previous government came from the leftist party. So all the freedom-destroying laws were voted by traditional parties and even by left parties in France. So this is to show you that Islamophobia and racism in France has nothing to do with the parties but with the system. It's a systemic racism and state Islamophobia, especially with the Anti-Separatism Law now that include in the French legislation Islamophobic provisions, which are derogatory and restrict individual freedoms. The situation of Muslim minority in France has nothing to do with the situation of Muslims in other Western countries, such as Canada, United Kingdom, United States, etc. We have in France a real anti-Muslim legal framework. We have laws that are exclusively directed against Muslims in France. So if I can summarize, we have a law of 2004 prohibiting Muslim women wearing hijab at school, middle school, and high school. We have also the law of 2010 banning Muslim women to wear the niqab. We had a ministerial circular in 2012 banning Muslim mothers wearing hijab to go with their children to school trips. And now we have the Anti-Separatism Law. So even without laws, thousands of Muslim women are prevented from working, prevented from granted the validation of their diploma by an internship. Muslim women are also prevented from practicing a sport, and they are quite simply prevented from having a social life and from being free and from living their life and their dream like all the other French women in this society.
How much of the colonialism of France, historic colonialism in the West Africa, is contributing to this type of attitude towards Muslims?
What I can say is that France has a problem with Muslims, and particularly with Muslim women wearing the hijab. A simple observation allows us to establish it. Many Islamophobic laws targeted women, and recently the pressure that France put on the Council of Europe, for instance, to remove a campaign defending the right to wear the hijab is an example. So we had several laws assaulting the hijab. As I said earlier, the law of 2004 on the hijab ban at school, the law of 2010 on the niqab, the hijab ban at national and international sport competition, now with the anti-separatism law, the ban of Muslim mothers from going with their children to school trips, and finally the ban of the burkini. So this kind of policy is not new. It's something used during the French colonization in Africa, West Africa, and all its imperial states. So under the French colonization in Algeria, for instance, France was doing unveiling ceremonies and used posters advocating the unveiling of Algerian women to assert and put into effect French domination in Muslim lands. So finally, nothing has changed in France now. Today, we are facing a situation of neocolonialism that is not identified as one.
This is so horrible to hear that. In countries like United States and Canada, none of these laws exist. So what is so unique about France that they want to have all these type of laws?
I think that in France it's unique because France has an issue with Muslim because it's linked to the French history with its Muslim community and French history regarding the colonialism. And also it's unique because in France we have systemic Islamophobia. We have a state Islamophobia. So that's why there is this big difference between France and Canada, or France and the United Kingdom.
What is the coordination against anti-separatism laws?
The Coordination Against Separatism Law was created in reaction to the intention of the French government in 2020 to vote a bill named Law to Confirm Principles of the Republic, or also named Anti-Separatism Law. So the goal of the coordination is to raise awareness on state Islamophobia in France and on the consequences of the anti-separatism law on the civic, economic, social rights and individual freedoms of the Muslims in France. So the coordination has taken several actions on social media and held street action also, and invited several organizations, even international organizations, to join and sign the international call to stand against Islamophobia in France.
Well, thank you so much, Sister Maria, who is a human rights activist in France.